Captain Elena Voss stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, her wrists bound in quantum restraints that hummed with alien energy. The crystalline walls reflected distorted images of the assembled representatives from across known space. 12 different species sat in judgment, their various forms of disapproval clear despite their alien features. The Zephyrian judge, a tall being with translucent skin and multiple eyes, spoke in the universal tongue through a translation device. Elena Voss of the human species, you have been found guilty of excessive violence during the Kepler Station incident. Your actions resulted in the deaths of 47 pirates, deemed unnecessary by council standards. Elena's jaw tightened. Those pirates had been torturing civilians, using children as human shields. She had done what needed to be done while the council's peacekeepers hesitated and debated proper protocols. The screams of the innocent had demanded action, not committee meetings. The human tendency toward violence has been noted in previous reports, continued the Altarian representative, a slug-like creature whose voice oozed with disgust. Your species shows disturbing predatory instincts that make you unsuitable for civilized society. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Elena had heard it all before. Humans were too aggressive, too quick to resort to violence, too primitive for the enlightened galactic community. The fact that their aggression often saved lives seemed irrelevant to these soft, civilized species who had forgotten what true danger looked like. The Vegan ambassador, resembling a walking plant with flowing tendrils, swayed forward. We cannot simply imprison her. Humans have proven resistant to standard rehabilitation methods. Their warrior instincts run too deep. Then what do you propose? Asked the judge. Exile, the Vegan said simply. There is a sector in the Outer Rim, Sector 779. It is controlled by the Kythera Collective, a species we have had minimal contact with. They are known to be aggressive, territorial. Perhaps placing this human among her own kind of predators will teach her the folly of violence. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard whispers about the Kythera Collective. They were one of the few species the Council genuinely feared, too dangerous to engage diplomatically. The Outer Rim was a lawless expanse where ships disappeared and distress calls went unanswered. The Collective has never responded to our communications, the judge noted. We know little about their society beyond their territorial nature and advanced technology. Exactly, the Altarian replied. Let her face true predators. Perhaps she will learn what it means to be prey. The vote was swift and unanimous. Elena would be stripped of her citizenship, her ship confiscated, and transported to the edge of Kythera space in a minimal survival pod. It was essentially a death sentence disguised as justice. As the guards led her away, Elena caught sight of Ambassador Chen from the Human Colonial Authority. The elderly diplomat's face was etched with regret, but he had been powerless to stop the Council's decision. Humanity's membership in the galactic community was too new, too fragile to risk over one soldier's fate. 3 days later, Elena found herself crammed into a cramped survival pod, watching the stars shift as she was transported toward the unknown. The pod contained basic supplies, water recyclers, protein synthesizers, medical kit, and a simple beacon that would broadcast her location once activated. The guards had made it clear that activating the beacon would be pointless. No Council ship would risk entering Kythera space to retrieve her. The journey took 2 weeks. Elena spent the time reviewing everything she knew about the Kythera Collective, which wasn't much. They had appeared on the galactic scene roughly 50 years ago, claiming a vast territory in the Outer Rim with overwhelming force. Any ship that entered their space without permission simply vanished. The few survivors who escaped described massive vessels with organic-looking hulls and weapons that seemed to think for themselves. When the transport finally reached the edge of Kythera space, Elena was unceremoniously ejected in her pod. She watched the Council ship immediately jump to hyperspace, abandoning her to whatever fate awaited. The pod system showed her current location, a debris field around a dead star just inside the boundary of collective territory. Elena activated the pod's passive sensors, searching for any sign of activity. The debris field stretched for millions of kilometers, filled with the twisted remains of ships from dozens of different species. Some appeared to be council vessels, others were completely unknown designs. It was a graveyard of those who had dared to enter Kythera space uninvited. For 3 days, nothing happened. Elena rationed her supplies and tried to plan her next move, though options were severely limited. The pod's engine was barely capable of maneuvering within a solar system, let alone interstellar travel. She was trapped, waiting for the Kythera to notice her presence. On the 4th day they came. Elena's sensors detected massive displacement signatures approaching from multiple vectors. Through the pod's small viewport, she watched in awe as shapes emerged from hyperspace. The ships were unlike anything she had ever seen. Organic curves blended with metallic surfaces, creating vessels that looked more grown than built. They moved with fluid grace despite their enormous size, surrounding her tiny pod with predatory precision. The largest ship, easily the size of a council dreadnought, positioned itself directly in front of her. Elena could see weapon ports opening, along its hull energy signatures building. This was it, the end that the council had planned for her. Instead of firing, a tractor beam locked onto her pod, drawing her toward an opening bay in the massive ship's belly. Elena gripped the pod's controls, knowing resistance was futile but unable to stop herself from trying. The Kythera ship's bay was vast, easily capable of holding dozens of vessels her size. Bioluminescent strips provided eerie blue-green lighting, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. As her pod settled onto the deck, Elena could see figures moving in the shadows. The Kythera themselves remained a mystery. No clear images existed in council databases. She checked her sidearm, a simple plasma pistol the guards had overlooked in their haste to be rid of her. It wouldn't do much against an entire ship full of aliens, but it made her feel slightly less helpless. The pod's outer hatch began to cycle open against her will. Atmosphere rushed in, carrying scents that were both alien and strangely familiar. Ozone, metal, and something organic that reminded her of a jungle after rain. Elena stood, squaring her shoulders and preparing to face whatever came next. The council had sent her here to die among predators, assuming she would be just another victim in their graveyard of ships. They had no idea what they had actually done. They had sent a trained soldier, a survivor who had lived through conflicts that would have broken their civilized sensibilities. Elena Voss had been exiled to face monsters. She was about to show them what a real monster looked like. Elena stepped out of her pod with measured confidence, her hand resting casually on her plasma pistol's grip. The bay around her pulsed with organic light, and she could hear the rhythmic thrum of what might have been the ship's heartbeat. Shadows moved at the edges of her vision, but nothing approached directly. Then she saw them. The Kythera emerged from the darkness with fluid grace, their forms both alien and oddly familiar. They stood roughly 8 feet tall on powerful legs that ended in clawed feet. Their bodies were covered in scales that shifted color like a chameleon's skin, currently displaying patterns of deep blue and silver. Most striking were their eyes, large, intelligent, with vertical pupils that tracked her every movement. Elena had expected monsters. Instead, she found herself looking at what could only be described as evolved predators, built for hunting but clearly capable of complex thought. Their movements spoke of barely contained violence, but it was controlled violence, disciplined and purposeful. The lead Kythera approached, its scales shifting to display more aggressive patterns of red and black. When it spoke, Elena was surprised to hear it use the universal tongue, though with a distinctly predatory accent that made every word sound like a growl. Human, it said, the word carrying layers of meaning Elena couldn't fully interpret. You enter our territory in council vessel. Council ships burn, you do not burn. Why? Elena chose her words carefully. I'm not with the council anymore. They exiled me here, hoping your people would kill me. The Kythera's head tilted, a gesture that reminded Elena of a bird of prey studying potential dinner. Exile? For what? Crime? I killed 47 pirates to save innocent people. The council decided I was too violent for civilized society. A sound rippled through the assembled Kythera, something between a laugh and a snarl. The leader's scales shifted to display what Elena instinctively recognized as amusement. bright green patterns dancing across its hide. "Council calls you violent," the leader said. "Council who hide behind laws while innocents die. Council who negotiate with slavers and call it diplomacy." It leaned closer, and Elena caught a scent like heated metal and ozone. "I am Pack Leader Vextar. What is your name, violent human?" "Elena Voss. Captain Elena Voss." "Captain no more, yes? Just Elena now." Vextar's scales displayed deeper patterns, and Elena realized she was seeing the Kithera equivalent of careful consideration. "Council sends you to die among predators, but perhaps they have given us something else entirely." Another Kithera approached, smaller than Vextar, but moving with the fluid confidence of a born killer. Its scales showed patterns Elena was beginning to associate with curiosity, rapid shifts between blue and yellow. "This is Hunt Leader Zarath," Vextar said. "She leads our warriors in battle. She wishes to know, can you fight, Elena Voss?" Elena met Zarath's predatory gaze steadily. "I can fight." "Words," Zarath said, her voice carrying a dismissive edge. "Council creatures speak many words. Show, not speak." Before Elena could respond, Zarath moved. The attack came with inhuman speed, claws extended and scales flashing aggressive red. Elena's combat training kicked in automatically. She dropped low, avoiding the claws by inches, and drove her elbow toward Zarath's midsection. The Kithera twisted away with liquid grace, but Elena had expected that. She followed through with a leg sweep that caught Zarath off balance. As the alien warrior stumbled, Elena drew her plasma pistol in one smooth motion, placing the barrel against Zarath's throat. Silence fell over the bay. Elena could feel the tension in the air, dozens of predators ready to tear her apart for threatening their pack member. But Zarath's scales suddenly exploded in brilliant patterns of gold and orange. What Elena somehow knew was approval and excitement. "She fights well," Zarath announced, seemingly unbothered by the weapon at her throat. "Fast reflexes, good instincts. She reads movement like true hunter." Elena slowly lowered her weapon, noting that none of the other Kithera had moved to help. Their pack member. This had been a test, not an attack. "Your turn to answer a question," she said to Vextar. "Why haven't you killed me yet?" Vextar's scales shifted to display complex patterns Elena was beginning to recognize as deep thought. 50 cycles ago, when we first met council species, we tried to communicate. We offered alliance, trade, shared hunting grounds. They called us monsters, savages, unfit for civilization. The pack leader began walking deeper into the ship, gesturing for Elena to follow. She fell into step beside him, aware that she was being escorted rather than forced. "We watch council species," Vextar continued. "They are weak, soft. They make rules to avoid making choices. They talk when they should act, debate when they should fight. But sometimes, very rarely, we see something different." They entered what appeared to be a command center, walls lined with displays showing star charts and tactical information. Elena recognized several council ship designs marked as targets, along with patrol routes and defensive positions. "Your species is new to council," Vextar said. "But humans fight. Humans make hard choices. When others hesitate, humans act." He turned to face her, scales displaying what Elena now understood was respect. "Council fears this about you, calls it primitive. We call it strength." Zarath had followed them, along with several other Kithera who seemed to hold positions of authority. Elena found herself at the center of attention from some of the galaxy's most feared predators, and surprisingly, she felt more comfortable than she had in any council chamber. "The question becomes," Vextar continued, "what do we do with Exiled? Human who carries warrior's heart? Kill her quickly," suggested one of the other Kithera, a scarred veteran whose scales showed permanent damage from old battles. "End council's game before it begins." "No," said Zarath firmly. "Test her properly. If she fails, then kill. If she succeeds—" The hunt leader's scales displayed anticipation. "Then we have ally worth keeping." Elena stepped forward. "What kind of test?" Vextar's predatory smile revealed rows of sharp teeth. Council space has 3 outposts at edge of our territory. They watch us, report our movements, coordinate defenses against us. We have planned to remove them for many cycles. He manipulated the tactical display, showing Elena the positions of 3 heavily fortified stations. Each one bristled with weapons and was surrounded by automated defense platforms. Traditional assault would be costly, Vextar explained. Many warriors would die. But perhaps there is another way. Perhaps exiled human could get close where Kythera cannot. Elena studied the displays, her military training automatically analyzing defensive positions and potential approaches. It was a suicide mission by any reasonable standard. 3 stations, each one capable of holding off a fleet. But these weren't reasonable circumstances. You want me to take out council observation posts, Elena said. In exchange for what? Survival. Vextar replied simply. Prove you are worthy predator, and you live among predators. Fail, and you die as council intended. Elena looked around at the assembled Kythera, reading the body language she was quickly learning to interpret. They expected her to refuse, to beg for mercy, to reveal herself as just another soft council creature. Instead, she smiled. When do we start? The first observation post hung in space like a mechanical spider, its sensor arrays reaching out in all directions, while defensive platforms orbited in careful patterns. Elena floated in the pilot seat of a captured council shuttle, studying the station's defenses through passive sensors. The Kythera had given her exactly what she'd requested: a small ship, basic weapons, and 12 hours to prove herself. Behind her, in the shuttle's cramped passenger compartment, 3 young Kythera, warriors, watched her every move. They had volunteered to witness her trial, though Elena suspected they were really there to ensure she didn't simply flee into council space. Their scales displayed barely contained excitement. They expected to watch her die. Human, called the youngest, a warrior named Kythera, whose scales still showed the bright patterns of inexperience. Your ship approaches sensor range. They will detect you soon. Elena nodded, her hand steady on the controls. That's the idea. She activated the shuttle's distress beacon and opened a channel to the observation post. Within seconds, a voice crackled through the speakers. Human, she noted with interest. Unknown shuttle. This is Monitor Station Alpha. You are broadcasting emergency signals. State your identity and situation. Elena allowed exhaustion to creep into her voice. Monitor Station Alpha. This is Medical Transport 779. Our main drive failed during routine supply run to Kepler Colony. We've been drifting for 6 days. Life support is failing. Request immediate assistance. A pause. Elena could imagine the station's crew checking their databases, trying to verify her story. The shuttle's identification codes were legitimate. Taken from a vessel that had disappeared in Kythera space months ago. Medical Transport 779. We show no scheduled supply runs to Kepler Colony in your flight path. Emergency run, Elena replied quickly. Plague outbreak. The colony needed medical supplies immediately. Please, we have wounded aboard and our air scrubbers are failing. Another pause, longer this time. Elena watched the tactical display as one of the station's defensive platforms adjusted course, moving to intercept her shuttle. The Kythera behind her tensed, hands moving toward weapons, but Elena remained calm. Transport 779, maintain current heading. Platform 6, will escort you to Docking Bay 3. Any deviation from assigned course will be considered hostile action. Understood, Monitor Station. Thank you. Kythera leaned forward, scales showing confusion. You give yourself to them? This is your plan? Patience, Elena murmured. Sometimes, the best way to take a fortress is to be invited inside. The docking process went smoothly. Elena powered down the shuttle's weapons and allowed the station's tractor beams to guide her into the bay. Through the viewport, she could see the space was cramped, designed more for supply runs than military operations. Perfect. As the bay pressurized, Elena turned to address the 3 Kythera. Stay here until you hear my signal. When I give the Word, take the shuttle and head for the other two stations. Don't wait for me. The eldest warrior, Thexan, displayed patterns of skepticism. You sacrifice yourself for mission? This is foolish. Helena checked her sidearm and the small explosive charges she'd hidden throughout her uniform. I'm not planning to die here, but if something goes wrong, complete the mission. Vextar needs to know those stations are eliminated. The shuttle's airlock cycled open and Helena stepped onto the station. A team of 4 security officers waited for her, weapons lowered but ready. She recognized the type, professional but not particularly experienced. These were observers, not fighters. Welcome aboard Monitor Station Alpha, said the lead officer, a middle-aged woman with the bearing of a career military officer. I'm Lieutenant Commander Hayes. Our medical team is standing by to assist your wounded. Helena nodded gratefully. Thank you, Commander. The injured are in the rear compartment. They've been unconscious for hours. Hayes gestured for 2 of her officers to check the shuttle while she escorted Helena toward the station's interior. What exactly happened out there? We've had reports of increased Kithra activity in this sector. Drive failure, like I said, Helena replied, letting nervousness creep into her voice. We picked up some strange sensor readings before the breakdown, but nothing definite. Could have been anything. They walked through corridors lined with monitoring, equipment, and tactical displays. Helena memorized the layout automatically, noting security checkpoints, weapon storage areas, and most importantly, the station's command center. The facility was larger than it appeared from outside, probably housing a crew of 30 to 40 people. Here we are, Hayes said, stopping at a medical bay. Dr. Chen will take care of your people. Helena paused, as if remembering something important. Commander, I should mention, one of my passengers has been showing signs of infection. Nothing serious, but the medical protocols require isolation procedures. Hayes frowned. What kind of infection? Probably just bacterial, but the symptoms are unusual. Violent outbursts, aggressive behavior. Could be some kind of neural pathogen. Helena lowered her voice conspiratorially. Between you and me, that's the real reason we were rushing medical supplies to Kepler Colony. They didn't want to cause a panic by broadcasting the details. The commander's expression hardened. Are you telling me you might have brought a dangerous pathogen aboard my station? It's probably nothing, Helena said quickly. But if you want to check for yourself, Hayes was already moving, calling for her security team to meet her at the shuttle bay. Helena followed, playing the part of a concerned transport pilot while mentally counting steps and mapping escape routes. Back in the bay, Hayes approached, the shuttle cautiously. You said the infected individual was unconscious? Yes, but the symptoms come and go. Sometimes they seem completely normal. Then suddenly, Helena's words were cut off by a bone-chilling roar from inside the shuttle. Through the viewport, they could see something large moving in the passenger compartment. Hayes drew her weapon instinctively. What the hell was that? Helena backed away, eyes wide with apparent fear. It's happening again. They warned me this might occur, but I thought the sedatives would hold. Another roar echoed from the shuttle, followed by the sound of something heavy slamming against the interior walls. The 3 Kithra were putting on quite a performance, Helena noted with approval. Hayes was speaking rapidly into her communicator, calling for backup and initiating containment protocols. Commander, Helena said urgently, you need to seal that shuttle immediately. If whatever's affecting them is contagious, already on it. Hayes was coordinating her team, moving them into defensive positions around the shuttle. Jackson, activate the bay's isolation protocols. Nothing gets in or out of that shuttle until we figure out what we're dealing with. Helena nodded approvingly. Good thinking. I'll contact my medical team and get you the treatment protocols we developed. She started toward the bay's exit. With your permission, I'd like to use your long-range communications to reach Kepler Colony directly. Granted. Take Corridor 7 to the command center. Ask for Lieutenant Torres. Helena walked calmly toward the exit, passing security officers, who were focused entirely on the apparently dangerous shuttle. Once she was out of sight, she picked up her pace, moving swiftly through the station's corridors. The command center was exactly where she expected it to be. The station's nerve center, housing communications, sensors, and defensive controls. Lieutenant Torres was a young officer who barely looked up when Elena entered. "You're the transport pilot? Commander Hayes said you needed communications access." "That's right," Elena said, approaching his station. "I need to send an emergency message to Kepler Colony's medical authority." As Torres turned to activate the communication system, Elena struck. Her hand clamped over his mouth while her other arm wrapped around his throat in a sleeper hold. The lieutenant struggled for a few seconds before going limp. Elena dragged him behind his console and quickly accessed the command center's primary systems. The station's defensive platforms, automated weapons, and communications were all controlled from here. She began uploading a virus she'd prepared during the flight, a simple but effective program that would gradually shut down all systems while making it look like random malfunctions. The virus would take 30 minutes to fully corrupt the station's systems. Elena set her chronometer and moved to the next phase of her plan. She attached small explosive charges to the primary power conduits and communication relays, setting them for remote detonation. A proximity alarm sounded suddenly, and Elena looked up to see a new contact on the tactical display. A council patrol ship was approaching the station, responding to the distress call that was still being broadcast by her shuttle. Elena smiled grimly and activated the station's external communications. "Monitor Station Alpha to approaching council vessel. We have a medical emergency in progress. Maintain distance and prepare for quarantine procedures." The patrol ship's response was immediate. "Monitor Station Alpha, this is CNV Vigilance. We're Gio. Responding to your medical transport's distress signal. What is the nature of your emergency?" "Possible pathogen outbreak," Elena replied, mimicking Hayes's voice. "Unknown infection affecting shuttle crew. We're implementing full containment protocols. Recommend you maintain position and coordinate with medical authorities before approaching." "Understood, Monitor Station. We'll establish perimeter and await medical team arrival." "Perfect." The patrol ship would keep its distance, giving Elena time to complete her mission. She checked her chronometer, 20 minutes until the virus finished its work. An explosion echoed through the station, followed by alarms and the sound of running feet. Elena quickly checked the security monitors and saw chaos in the shuttle bay. The three Kythera had finally broken free of their containment and were systematically destroying everything in sight. While security officers scrambled for cover, Elena activated her communicator. "Signal received," came Kesra's voice. "Beginning Phase 2. Elena began moving toward her extraction point, passing panicked crew members who were responding to multiple emergencies simultaneously. The beauty of her plan was its simplicity. By the time anyone realized what was really happening, it would be too late to stop her. The first observation post was about to become a very expensive piece of space debris. The Drakmarian flagship, Blood of Stars, drifted through the asteroid field like a wounded predator, its hull scarred from a dozen raids and its weapon ports still glowing with residual heat. Elena studied the massive vessel through her ship's sensors, noting the aggressive design that favored firepower over defense. The Drakmarians built their ships to hunt, not to survive prolonged engagements. "They're hailing us," reported Kesra, from the communications station. The young Kythera had volunteered to join Elena's mission, along with 20 other warriors who were curious to see if the exiled human could really forge an alliance from chaos. "Put them through," Elena said, settling into the command chair of her new ship. The Kythera had given her a modified cruiser they called Apex Predator, smaller than a flagship, but fast, well-armed, and equipped with the best stealth technology the collective possessed. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a figure that made Elena suppress a smile of recognition. The Drakmarian clan lord was exactly what she had expected. Massive, scarred, with the kind of presence that commanded respect through barely contained violence. His species resembled humanoid reptiles crossed with ancient earth dragons, complete, with natural armor plating and eyes that burned with inner fire. "Unknown vessel," the clan lord growled in accented universal tongue. "You approach Clan Mordak hunting grounds without permission. Explain your presence or be destroyed." Elena leaned forward, projecting the calm confidence of someone who had faced worse threats. Clan Lord Mordak, I am Elena Voss. I come seeking audience with the strongest of the Drakmarian clans to discuss matters of mutual benefit. Mordak's eyes narrowed dangerously. Human speaks with knowledge of clan names. How does soft council creature learn of Drakmarian ways? I'm not a council creature anymore, Elena replied. They exiled me for being too violent for their civilized sensibilities. I've been living among the Kithara collective, learning what real strength looks like. A rumble that might have been laughter emanated from the Drakmarian leader. Kithara accept you? Interesting. But what business does exiled human have with the clans? Elena stood, letting her full presence fill the screen. I'm here to offer you something the council never could. The chance to hunt prey worthy of your strength. 3 hours later, Elena sat in the Blood of Stars war room, surrounded by a dozen clan lords whose combined presence could have intimidated a small army. The chamber reeked of testosterone violence and barely controlled aggression. Perfect conditions for the kind of negotiation Elena had in mind. You speak of greater hunts, said Clan Lord Vashatar, a smaller but notoriously vicious leader whose clan specialized in boarding actions. But clans already raid council shipping. We take what we need, fight where we choose. What more could human offer? Elena activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic shipping routes. You're taking scraps from the council's table, isolated convoys, undermanned cargo ships, the occasional patrol vessel. Meanwhile, the real prizes remain untouchable. She highlighted several routes deep in council space. These are the primary trade arteries, convoys carrying refined materials, advanced technology, even military supplies. Each convoy is worth more than everything your clans have taken in the past year combined. Mordak leaned forward, his massive frame casting shadows across the display. Council defends core routes heavily. Many ships, strong escort fleets. Clans would suffer great losses attacking such targets. If the clans attacked individually, Elena agreed. But what if I could give you something the council doesn't expect? Coordination? She manipulated the display, showing fleet movements and defensive patterns. Council strategy relies on predictability. They know each clan operates independently, so they position their defenses accordingly. But watch what happens when multiple clans strike simultaneously at coordinated targets. The simulation played out, showing how simultaneous raids across multiple sectors would force the council to spread their defensive fleets thin, creating vulnerabilities that individual clans could exploit. Coordination requires trust, said Clan Lord Zephyra, one of the few female leaders present. Her clan controlled the fastest ships in Drakmarian space. Clans do not trust easily. Why should we trust exiled human who claims friendship with Kithara? Elena had expected this challenge. She gestured to Kesra, who stepped forward and displayed his scales in formal greeting patterns. Because the Kithara have already proven the value of this alliance by sharing intelligence. She activated a new display showing detailed schematics of council defensive positions, fleet movements, and communication protocols. This information came from the observation posts I destroyed for the collective. It represents the most complete picture of council defenses anyone outside their military command possesses. The room fell silent as the clan lords absorbed the implications. Elena could practically see their minds calculating potential targets and raids. Information is valuable, Mordak admitted grudgingly, but coordination requires more than shared intelligence. Who would command such alliance? Which clan lord would other clans follow? Elena smiled. This was the moment she had been building toward. None of them. The reaction was immediate and predictable. Roars of outrage, displays of aggression, hands moving toward weapons. Elena remained calm until the initial fury burned itself out. You think to command Drakmarian clans yourself? Vashatar snarled. Human has courage, but courage without wisdom leads to death. I think command should go to whoever proves they deserve it, Elena replied. The same way it works within your individual clans, through strength, cunning, and results. She stood and walked to the center of the room, placing herself within easy reach of a dozen predators who could kill her without effort. I propose a trial period. Give me operational command of one coordinated raid. If it succeeds beyond your current capabilities, we discuss long-term alliance. If it fails, you can go back to fighting over scraps while the Council grows stronger. Zephyra's eyes glittered with interest. What target do you propose for this trial? Elena activated a new display showing a massive space station in the Centauri system. Depot Station Gamma 7, the Council's primary supply hub for this entire sector. It's defended by a full battle group and contains enough military hardware to outfit 50 fleets. The clan lord studied the display with professional interest, noting the defensive positions and fleet strengths. Mordak was the first to speak. Station is fortress. Multiple defensive platforms, escort fleet of 12 ships, automated weapon systems. Would require combined strength of all clans to assault directly, and losses would be enormous. If you assault it directly, Elena agreed. But what if the station's defenses were turned against the escort fleet? What if the defensive platform suddenly began targeting Council ships instead of raiders? She outlined her plan with the same careful precision she had used against the observation posts. Multiple diversionary attacks to draw off patrol fleets, infiltration teams to take control of the station's defensive systems, and coordinated strikes to prevent reinforcements from arriving. You would turn Council strength against Council, Zephyra said, her voice carrying newfound respect. It is elegant strategy. It's Predator strategy, Elena replied. Use the Prey's own weapons to bring it down. The debate that followed lasted hours, with different clan lords raising objections and concerns while Elena addressed each one systematically. She could feel the momentum building as more of them began to see the potential of her approach. Finally, Mordak stood and raised his weapon, a massive energy blade that hummed with contained power. Clan Mordak will follow Elena Voss for this hunt. If human can deliver promised victory, we will consider greater alliance. One by one, the other clan lords stood and raised their weapons in similar gestures of conditional acceptance. Elena felt a surge of satisfaction as she realized her first major step toward uniting the galaxy's outcasts was about to become reality. Then let's show the Council what happens when predators work together, she said. 3 days later, Elena stood on the bridge of the Apex Predator as her combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri system. 18 Drachmarian warships flanked her vessel, their crews eager for battle and their weapons powered for war. Diversionary forces report ready, Kessera announced. Clans Vashtar and Zephyra are in position to begin their attacks. Elena studied the tactical display, watching as Council patrol ships moved in predictable patterns around Depot Station. Gamma 7. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Signal all ships, she commanded. Begin Phase 1. Across 3 systems simultaneously, Drachmarian raiders struck at Council outposts and convoys, not to destroy them, but to create enough chaos to draw defensive fleets away from their primary target. Elena watched with satisfaction as the Council, ships around the depot began receiving emergency calls for assistance. Station defensive fleet is breaking formation, reported the tactical officer. 8 ships departing to respond to raids. Phase 2, Elena ordered. A small team of volunteers led by Thexan and equipped with Kythera stealth technology began their approach to the station. Their mission was simple but incredibly dangerous. Infiltrate the command center and take control of the automated defense systems. Elena monitored their progress through encrypted communications, her hands steady on the controls despite the tension building in her chest. Everything depended on the next few minutes. We're in, came Thexan's voice. Beginning. System override now. On the tactical display, Elena watched as the station's defensive platforms slowly began changing their targeting parameters. Instead of protecting the depot, they would soon become weapons pointed at the remaining Council ships. All ships, prepare for final approach, Elena commanded. Remember, we're not here to destroy everything. We want those supplies intact. The Drachmarian fleet surged forward, their ships moving with coordinated precision that would have been impossible just days earlier. As they closed on the depot, the station's own defenses opened fire, not on the raiders, but on the 4 remaining Council escort vessels. The battle was brief and decisive. Caught between attacking raiders and their own defensive systems, the Council fleet was overwhelmed in minutes. Elena watched as Depot Station Gamma 7 surrendered without firing a shot at the Drakmarian ships. "Boarding parties away," reported Clan Lord Mordak from his flagship. "Station is ours." Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she watched the greatest prize the Drakmarian clans had ever taken fall into their hands. But more importantly, she had proven that her vision of coordinated predator warfare could work. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Secure all military supplies and prepare for evacuation. We have 30 minutes before Council reinforcements arrive." As her ships began the complex task of looting an entire depot station, Elena received a priority: communication from Vextar aboard the Kythera flagship. "Well done, Elena Voss," the pack leader said, his scales displaying deep satisfaction. "Word of your victory spreads quickly. The Void Wraiths have sent envoys requesting meeting. The savage worlds buzz with interest in this new alliance." Elena smiled as she watched Drakmarian warriors loading their ships with enough weapons and supplies to outfit their entire civilization. "Tell them I'll be happy to discuss terms, but first we have a depot to finish looting and a Council fleet to avoid." "Of course," Vextar replied. "Build your alliance one victory at a time. But remember, with each success, you become more dangerous to the Council. They will not ignore you much longer." Elena's smile turned predatory. "Good. It's time they learned what happens when they try to throw away their monsters." The Council chamber had never witnessed a gathering like this one. Ambassador Chen sat rigid in his chair, watching as holographic displays showed the devastating effectiveness of what intelligence reports were calling the Predator Alliance. In the 3 months since Elena Voss had united the Drakmarian clans, 17 major Council installations had fallen, 43 supply convoys had been destroyed, and worst of all, 3 entire species had withdrawn from Council membership to join what they termed a more honest form of civilization. "The situation has moved beyond mere raids," announced Director Kellum of Council Intelligence, his usually calm demeanor showing cracks of genuine worry. "We are facing a coordinated military campaign led by someone with intimate knowledge of our defensive strategies." On the main display, a star map showed the expanding influence of Elena's alliance. The Kythera Collective had openly allied with the Drakmarian clans. The Void Wraiths, artificial intelligences that the Council had always treated with suspicion, had pledged their advanced technology to the Alliance. Most disturbing of all, a dozen worlds from the savage frontier had united under the banner of what they called the Predator Covenant. "How is this possible?" demanded the Altarian representative, his slug-like form quivering with agitation. Elena Voss was exiled as a criminal. A single violent human should not be capable of threatening galactic stability. Ambassador Chen found his voice. "Because we never understood what we were dealing with. Humans aren't just randomly violent, we're strategic about it. We understand warfare in ways that peaceful species never learned." The Zephyrian judge who had sentenced Elena months earlier turned his multiple eyes toward Chen. "Are you suggesting her exile was an error?" "I'm saying," Chen replied carefully, "that we created our own worst nightmare. We took a trained military strategist and gave her both motive and opportunity to turn our enemies into an organized threat." The display shifted to show recent battle footage from the Kepler incident, the raid that had finally prompted this emergency session. Elena's forces had not simply attacked the system's defenses, they had systematically dismantled them while broadcasting their actions across the galactic communication network. The message had been clear: the Predator Covenant was no longer hiding in the shadows. "She has to be stopped," declared the Vegan ambassador, his plant-like form swaying with agitation. "This alliance threatens everything the Council has built." "With what?" Chen asked bluntly. "She's using our own tactics against us, but better. She offers strength to species we've ignored, protection to worlds we've neglected, and victory to people who are tired of losing. Meanwhile, we offer them committee meetings and diplomatic protocols." Director Kellum activated new intelligence reports. "Our sources indicate she's planning something far more ambitious than raids. Intercepted communications suggest a major offensive against one of our core systems. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Core systems were the heart of council space, heavily defended, politically crucial, and supposedly untouchable. Which system? Asked the judge. Unknown, but analysis of her previous actions suggests she'll target something with maximum symbolic impact. Something that will prove the council can't protect even its most important assets. Ambassador Chen stood slowly, his aged frame carrying the weight of terrible certainty. She's coming for Earth. The reaction was immediate. Protests, denials, demands for evidence. But Chen continued with grim certainty. It's the perfect target. The newest council member, the species she belongs to, heavily defended but not impregnable. Taking Earth would prove that the council can't even protect its own members' homeworlds. On cue, the chamber's communication system activated with an incoming priority message. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that sent chills through every council representative. Elena Voss stood on what appeared to be the bridge of a massive warship, but she was no longer the isolated exile they had sentenced months earlier. She wore armor that combined human design with alien technology, and behind her stood representatives of every species in her alliance: Kythera warriors, Drakmarian clan lords, void wraith constructs, and others the council barely recognized. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, Elena began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had earned her position through victory rather than appointment. I bring greetings from the Predator Covenant. The title sent murmurs through the chamber. Elena smiled as if she could hear their discomfort across space. I know what you're thinking, she continued. How did one exiled human manage to unite the galaxy's outcasts? How did someone you dismissed as a violent criminal become the architect of your greatest threat? She gestured to her alien allies. The answer is simple. You taught me that strength. Without wisdom leads to defeat. So I learned wisdom from those you called monsters. You showed me that isolation breeds weakness, so I forged alliances with those you called uncivilized. Elena stepped closer to the camera, her expression hardening. But most importantly, you taught me that in a universe where survival depends on strength, those who refuse to fight deserve to lose. Director Kellum leaned forward. What do you want, Voss? Justice, Elena replied simply. Not the pretend justice of committees and protocols, but real justice, the kind that comes from consequences. She activated a display showing council territories. For centuries, you've maintained peace by ensuring that anyone strong enough to challenge you was kept divided, isolated, or eliminated. You've built a civilization of sheep and called it enlightenment. The display shifted to show the expanding Covenant territories. But now the wolves have learned to work together, and we're tired of pretending that sheep deserve to rule the galaxy. The Zephyrian judge found his voice. Are you declaring war on the council? Elena's laugh carried no humor. Judge, the war began the moment you decided I was too dangerous for civilization. I'm simply here to announce the terms of your surrender. The chamber erupted in outrage, but Elena continued over the noise. You have 72 standard hours to begin withdrawing council forces from contested systems. Any world that wishes to join the Covenant will be allowed to do so without interference. In exchange, we'll limit our expansion to species that actually want to be part of something stronger. And if we refuse? Demanded the Altarian representative. Elena's smile turned predatory. Then you'll discover what happens when predators stop playing by prey rules. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Chen looked around at his fellow representatives, reading the fear and uncertainty in their alien expressions. We need to mobilize the fleet, the Vegan ambassador said finally. Gather every available ship and crush this alliance before it grows stronger. With what? Chen asked quietly. Half our member species are reconsidering their loyalty. Our military commanders are trained for peacekeeping operations, not total war. And Elena Voss has spent months studying our tactics while we know almost nothing about hers. Director Kellum was frantically coordinating with intelligence operatives across the galaxy. Sir, we're receiving reports of Covenant fleets massing in multiple sectors. This isn't a bluff. They're preparing for major offensive operations. How many ships? Asked the judge. Conservative estimate? 2,000 warships with more joining every day. They're not just raiding anymore, they're building an invasion force. Chen closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his species' fate. We created this. When we exiled Elena Voss, we thought we were solving a problem. Instead, we handed our greatest threat the motivation and opportunity she needed to become unstoppable. What do you recommend? The judge asked. Chen looked at the display showing Covenant territories, now covering nearly a quarter of the galaxy's inhabited systems. We accept her terms. We negotiate. We try to salvage what we can from this disaster. Surrender to criminals and terrorists? The Altarian's voice dripped with disgust. The Council does not negotiate with predators. Then the Council dies, Chen replied bluntly. Because Elena Voss isn't just another terrorist. She's something the galaxy has never seen before. A human being with unlimited resources, alien allies, and nothing left to lose. He gestured to the star map showing the Alliance's rapid expansion. Look at what she's accomplished in 3 months. Now imagine what she'll do with 3 years or 3 decades. We can fight her and probably lose everything. Or we can negotiate and maybe save some of it. The debate that followed lasted hours, but Chen could see the inevitable conclusion approaching. The Council's greatest weakness had always been their inability to understand that sometimes the only way to deal with monsters was to become something more monstrous. Elena Voss had learned that lesson in the hardest way possible. Now she was teaching it to the rest of the galaxy, one conquered system at a time. As the Council argued about responses and strategies, Chen received a private communication on his personal device. The message was brief and unsigned, but he recognized the sender immediately. Ambassador Chen, you tried to help me once. When the Council falls, remember that the Covenant protects those who deserve protection. The offer stands. EV. Chen looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives, still debating strategies that were months too late to matter. Elena Voss had offered him a chance to join the winning side, not as a conqueror, but as someone who understood that survival sometimes required uncomfortable choices. He thought about humanity's homeworld, about the billions of people who would suffer if the Council's stubbornness led to total war. Then he thought about Elena Voss, the soldier they had exiled for being too violent to fit their vision of civilization. She had become exactly what they feared she would become. But perhaps, Chen realized, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. The age of the Council's peaceful dominance was ending. The era of the Predator Queen had begun.